Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are completely stripping away the sci-fi hype surrounding artificial intelligence, and we're looking right under the hood. We hear about AI literally everywhere right now. It's transforming business, it's writing our code, it's supposedly talking to us, but to actually harness this technology in our own organizations, we really need to separate the actual math from the perceived magic. So we're going to dive into some absolutely groundbreaking research today to figure out exactly what this newest generation of AI is really doing, what it's costing us, and trust me, it's a lot, and how businesses can actually use it without falling into some very, very expensive traps. Let's just start right off the bat with a really big question. Is AI actually thinking, or is it just predicting? Think about it. When a chatbot writes this beautiful, rhyming poem or perfectly summarizes a super dense report for you, it really feels like there is a mind inside that machine, doesn't it? It feels like it's actually thinking. But is it? Really understanding the mechanical reality of what these large language models are actually doing under the surface is absolutely crucial. It's literally the prerequisite for deploying them safely and effectively in any kind of organizational setting. And the stakes for getting this right, they literally couldn't be higher. In a recent International Journal of Information Management paper, there's this incredible juxtaposition from two massive leading experts. On one hand, you've got former IBM CEO Jeannie Rometty. She looks at AI as this powerful tool to augment human intelligence. She calls it a partnership between man and machine. But then, on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, you have the late Stephen Hawking, who warned that full AI could spell the end of the human race. Yeah, the end of the human race. These wildly divergent views show us exactly why we just cannot afford to be passive consumers of this technology. We have to understand its true nature if we're going to navigate our future.
All right, so let's get right into Act 1, the illusion.
Okay, let's dive into how these models actually function on a fundamental level. I want to introduce you to a really crucial concept called the stochastic parrot. This term was actually coined in a super influential research paper by Emily Bender, Timnit Gebru, and their colleagues. Now, stochastic is just a fancy word that basically means randomly determined or probabilistic. And they argue that large language models are, well, essentially just stochastic parrots. They're systems that beautifully mimic language based on these massive, massive data sets, but they completely lack any genuine human comprehension. They are literally just stitching together linguistic forms based on probabilistic patterns. So it looks like sentience, it sounds like sentience, but honestly, there's nobody home. Because fundamentally, a language model is just a system trained on string prediction tasks. It looks at the context of what you've typed, and it just predicts the most mathematically likely next token or word. And that's really it. As the researchers point out, simply manipulating linguistic form is absolutely not the same thing as natural language understanding, or NLU. So what looks to us like this amazing magic trick of artificial sentience is actually, at its core, just a highly advanced, incredibly complex string prediction engine. Which brings us to Act 2, massive scale and hidden costs. You see, to build an engine that can predict text that well requires an absolute, staggering explosion in scale and computing power. Just look at the timeline. Back in 2019, a model called BERT had about 340 million parameters, which sounds like a lot, right? Well, just a year later, in 2020, GPT-3 jumped to 175 billion parameters. And by 2021, models like Switch-C were pushing 1.6 trillion parameters. Trillion with a T. This wild exponential growth is exactly how we got the parrot to sound so completely convincing. But as you might guess, this kind of massive scale absolutely does not come for free. 284 tons. I just want that number to really sink in for a second. 284 tons. According to research cited right there in the Stochastic Parrots paper, this is the estimated amount of carbon dioxide emitted to train just one single big transformer model using neural architecture research. That's for just one single model. Let's put that into a bit of perspective because it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. The average human being is responsible for an estimated 5 tons of CO2 emissions per entire year. But training that one single big AI model, 284 tons. It's just massive, massive resource consumption. And the researchers highlight a really vital, honestly pretty sobering point here. This environmental cost actually doubly punishes marginalized communities. Because think about it, they're the least likely to actually benefit from all this shiny new advanced technology, but they're absolutely the most likely to be harmed by the environmental fallout of this extreme resource consumption. And beyond that physical environmental cost, there's also a massive data cost. To feed a model that has billions or even trillions of parameters, developers basically have to scrape the entire internet, literally. And the huge mechanical danger here is uncurated data. Because when you just ingest the entire web without any careful curation, the machine inevitably encodes whatever viewpoints are the most common online. Remember, the engine doesn't actually know what it's reading, it's just learning the statistical frequency of the text. So it perfectly replicates all the biased or even harmful ideologies that are already floating around on the internet, effectively hardwiring those exact statistical patterns right into the prediction engine itself. Which really leads us to the ultimate danger here. It's summarized perfectly in this quote from the researchers: the tendency of human interlocutors to impute meaning where there is none. See, because we are deeply, deeply social creatures, when we read text that makes grammatical sense to us, our brains just automatically assume there is a mind behind it with actual intent and meaning. So the real danger here isn't that the AI is, secretly plotting against us like in a movie. The danger is that we humans will be fooled into taking completely synthetic, statistically generated text as meaningful truth.
So let's move into Act 3, augmentation versus automation.
So, what does this all mean? If we know that AI is basically an incredibly powerful string prediction engine that lacks any true understanding, how do we actually use it in the real world? Well, in the business and organizational world, it really boils down to one fundamental strategic choice. Are you using AI to replace humans, which is automation, or to support them, which is augmentation? Research published in the International Journal of Information Management strongly emphasizes that organizations who deploy AI merely to automate decision-making and just replace their employees, well, they're likely going to see only very short-term productivity gains. And why is that? Because the second you encounter an unpredictable environment or have to make an unstructured decision, the machine completely falls apart. It has absolutely no real comprehension to fall back on.
So how are the absolute smartest organizations actually handling this today? Well, researcher Thomas Davenport, in a joint survey with Deloitte, categorized successful AI deployment into 3 main buckets. First up, cognitive process automation. This is basically using AI for your routine back-office administrative tasks, real simple stuff. Second, cognitive insights. This is using machine learning to detect hidden patterns in massive data sets that humans just couldn't possibly sift through on their own. And third, cognitive engagement. Think of this as using chatbots to engage with customers or employees, but specifically on highly structured queries. Now, do you notice what's totally missing from that list? Total executive replacement. No one is putting the AI in charge. These are all highly practical, bounded, and safe ways to use the technology. Which finally brings us to the ultimate goal outlined in all of this research: the human-machine symbiosis. You see, because AI totally lacks genuine comprehension, because we now know it's fundamentally just a stochastic parrot, it really shouldn't be left alone to make complex, nuanced judgments. It is hands down best used as an augmentation tool. You let the machine handle the pattern detection and the massive, massive data scale, and the human provides the real context, the judgment, and the actual human understanding. It's really all about optimizing our collaboration with the tool, not just racing toward total automation. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought for today. If AI is the parrot, if it's this brilliant, statistically magical, but ultimately totally uncomprehending mirror of our own data, how will you use your actual human intelligence to guide the conversation? Trust me, your cognitive value, your innate ability to actually understand context and real nuance, it has literally never been more indispensable than it is right now in this era of big data. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer, and we will definitely catch you next time.